Hi, everybody. You guys can think a few more people are jumping on. Great. So Holly is having a problem with a storm. She's in Costa Rica and she's trying to get on, but I am not hearing back from her yet. So it could just be me tonight, but we'll see. Okay, let me get rid of that and see who's here. Leanne, Jessica, Cassandra, Annette. Good to see everybody. Okay, so what's going on, ladies? How's everybody doing out there?
Going really well. Thank you
Good.
so much for setting up a Q&A, Kim. I was really excited to have another one because it's nice. I always love to talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what's going on.
So how
Um,
things going in Australia for you?
yeah, really good. It's CFT has just been so amazing for my business, for all my clients, and for new people coming along, and such a variety of different things that are coming, which is really good. But um, I think Holly was replying to my emails. I went to Japan in early January. I don't know if you read that.
Yeah.
And I went because I remember in the course you had those pictures about the young girl with the scoliosis.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And a good friend of mine who moved to Japan a few years ago, her husband's Japanese, and her daughter has scoliosis, and they didn't really have anything to do over there for her. The only option they had was surgery, and it
Yeah.
wasn't really bad enough for surgery. So they were just sort of monitoring it and taking her for massages to take the pain away, periodically because it would always come back. And so I went and I did 6 days of CFT with her and her brother who's got ADD, and also the grandmother who has dementia. So that was
Wow.
a really interesting experience. And well, firstly, the grandmother started remembering things like blowing us out of the water. Yeah. So she's got a
Oh,
slow progression form, and she didn't remember day to day the session that she had before until the third day. And then she'd be lying on my table and telling me a story and saying, "Oh, I told you that yesterday." And it's just like not heard
wow.
of for her. For her, interesting that didn't change. That change didn't stay. She had that in that week that she had the CFT, but then it's gone back to normal now. But the girl, so she was the one who I felt like I could have done a lot more on for her. And we took photos before and photos after, and her shoulder blades really sit like this out the back, really twisted. And so we took before and after photos, and we're like, oh, there's a bit of a change, but nothing really fabulous. Um, and so I was like, oh, well, we tried, kind of thing. And then about maybe a month ago now, maybe 6 weeks ago, my friend sent me a message and she goes, "Oh my goodness, I don't even need an x-ray, Leanne, because I just looked at my daughter's back and her shoulder blades are completely straight.
Wow.
It's so much better and she's had no pain since then." And so she's going to send me some photos. She hasn't got to that yet, but
It's
it's
awesome.
it's like it's so fascinating to see how sometimes people can walk out of here and the change has been instant and they walk out feeling very different. But then other times it's not, and then the change happens over a period of time, like as the body integrates that and makes that change. So it's really, really fascinating to me that her body made that change over a period of weeks and months nearly.
Yeah.
Um, so it's super fascinating, the power of the fascia.
That's such
It's
a
so
good
great.
story. That's
Mm,
fantastic.
so
Wonderful.
exciting.
Good.
Yeah.
Good, good, good. All right. Anybody else have anything to share? Any questions, stories? How's it going out there? No? No questions?
I
Jessica, raising your
had
hand?
a question. So Leanne, sorry, I'm walking around, so I'm going to turn my video off because I'm
Oh,
afraid it will.
yeah. Hi, Katrinka.
I'm getting ready for my daughter's ceremony award, so I won't dizzy you guys by walking around. Anyways, for I know everyone's different, but how long or how many sessions did you do for the girl with scoliosis?
Mm. So I was there for 7 days and I did 6 days of CFT and I I could go back and try and find my notes, but there was days where she just had one session. She definitely had every day. There was times where she had two sessions, and there was one sort of session that her body did not want to stop, and we actually went for 2 hours. So what would happen is she was sitting up, and I'd check her brain cycle, and as I'm counting her brain cycle, she actually just sort of fell over and went back into sideways, sort
Um,
of head off the end of the table therapy. And then that would come to an end, then we'd sit back up, then we'd go to check her brain cycle, and then oh, away she goes again. So she did receive a lot in that 6 days, but like on the last night, I was doing some work with her, and I'm like, oh man, she just does actually want more. Like she could have kept going. But yeah, so every day, well, as people are talking, I'll go back and have a little look so I can find my paperwork where I wrote down their brain cycles too. And that was a really interesting experience for me as well, to witness over like working with them one day and then the next day what their brain cycles were doing and how that was playing out. That was really fascinating as well.
How
Yeah, but
old
so
was,
she tolerated it quite well. Pardon?
how old was this girl?
So she's around 12. I think
Yeah,
she just turned.
yeah, I think that's about the X-ray you're referring to that I had
Mm,
shown. I think she was around 11. And I maybe had
mm.
two, maybe three sessions with her.
Yeah, so not very much. Like, so
Yeah.
I was she got a lot in a short space of time versus what your client had. Um, but it was also, I went all the way to Japan and we only had 6 days, so
Oh,
I just
yeah, yeah,
hit
yeah,
it with everything I
definitely.
had.
Absolutely. I
And
think,
she was tolerating it too.
yeah, the earlier, I think that's usually around the age when they start to get diagnosed with it,
Mm, mm,
right? 10,
mm,
11-ish.
mm,
So I think always think like with anything, the earlier that we can get in there, the better.
mm,
And then also the whole idea of prevention, that if we're working on someone, if a kid's having CFT consistently, maybe it's not even going to show up because we've already released that
mm.
strain that's kind of been, just waiting.
Absolutely.
Very good. Very good.
Then I was curious about for like seizures or like a little bit past when it's not an acute TBI.
Yeah, Holly, do you want to talk about that? You just were.
Yeah. I have my camera on. If it gets kind of dicey because of the storm, I may turn my camera off because it probably eats up a lot of. So seizures. I mean, I think you want to be working on seizures as soon as you can. I mean, obviously, a traumatic brain injury is a little bit different than a child or an adult who's having, ongoing epilepsy or seizures. So, is this someone that had a TBI?
Yeah, so well, it's two different people.
Okay.
Combine them. Here, I can turn my camera back on. I just was moving around. Yeah, so one is a 14-year-old, the TBI, from they were on one of those electric bikes. And then one is a seizure as a male. I want to say he's in his 50s. I haven't actually worked on him yet. I was just talking to his wife, we just started talking. She has her own business, and I was talking about starting mine. She's like, well, my husband has seizures, and she was asking me some questions, and I was like, well, I have a Q&A tonight, so I was just coming with that, but it's just been,
Well, what you should
yeah.
notice, brain
Uh-oh.
cycle. So you're going to get
Okay.
brain cycle, and yeah, and every time they have seizures, you're probably going to notice their brain cycle is going to go back down. Things are going to get really tight again. So
Right.
that's the thing with working on somebody ongoing who's got, seizures. I work on a little girl that lives near me here and she has seizures, throughout the day. So it's just continually, constantly reopening the system back up. So that might not be the case for this guy that you're working on. I don't know what his, situation is.
Right. Yeah, I didn't get any background yet or anything. So,
And in the TBI, how long out is the TBI?
um, a year and a couple months.
And what's happening for that kid?
So he's constantly making progress. It's just uh, the, I don't, there's just so much that could help him, like he's doing hippotherapy, he's doing all kinds of things. So,
Mhm.
I just feel like CFT could be helpful.
And have you
He's
worked, you
very
haven't worked
tight.
on it yet. Yeah.
Not in a CFT capacity yet. He's one of my students, and so I can't work on him until summer. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
conflict of interest.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely would be working on both of them as much as you can to
Okay.
try to just keep getting the cycle back open again if they continually have seizures. It's kind of tricky, but yeah, definitely helps.
And then scapular winging. Am I going to make that worse if they have the scapula? They're a different person. Sorry. Keep
Different
flip.
question, different person, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your question?
I just feel like if I might make that looser, or I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out. I know it's coming from this whole area, like because of just stuff that's going on. I feel like it's coming from all this area. That's why they have the scapular winging. But
And when you say that, you just mean
yeah, they're
like
out.
super rotated, like
They're like
rotated.
little doors. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole body,
Yeah.
thing going on. But yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't know that you're going to make that worse. I mean,
Okay.
that's a structure that, I mean, I imagine that that person's structure is pretty compromised elsewhere as well.
Yeah. I think it's all coming from this area. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's almost like a twist, and then the scapula wings.
Hmm.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
You're
you're welcome.
welcome. Kim, I can't see the questions,
Yeah, I
so
see
I'm
Jamie
on the
here.
phone.
Jimmy says, I have a 6-year-old girl with cerebral palsy coming to see me. She's cleared for body work. I am just curious if you have had any experience with cerebral palsy and what changes you have seen. Um,
Yep.
yeah, do you want to
Same
answer
for you. I mean,
that?
yeah, I mean, I've worked on kids with CP like for long periods of time. Again, it's kind of like working on someone with seizures. That CP is very spastic. It's very tight. They're constantly, so it's like a six of, or like two steps forward, one step back. It's kind of like that with CP. They're really tight. They're really spastic, and it does really help relax their nervous system and relax the fascial web and all of that. And I've worked on a lot of kids and a couple of adults with CP. But again,
Yeah.
it's not going to fix the CP, but it definitely helps maintain and loosen the system.
Yeah, I have not worked on people with CP. Just that's not been the nature of who I've worked with. However, I have had the opportunity where I've worked alongside Barry years ago at Family Hope Center, where he was working with children
Mhm.
with cerebral palsy, and maybe a few times when we were traveling, there were people who would come on with it. So yes, you want to work. Yes, you want to try to get that system open as much as you can. But like Holly said, we're not going to solve a cerebral palsy, um, you know issue, but you may help open up the cycle and bring them some kind of relief. Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else?
Question.
Hi, Casey. Sure.
Hello. Good to see you guys.
To see you.
I could use some direction on connecting the dots. When I read the Gillespie newsletters, he talks about how he started somewhere and it goes down into some other part of their body, and I don't really understand like how he figured out where that was. Is that like a feedback from the patient, or because I'm doing really good with people I'm working on with their cranial system and in their head and everything, but I kind of struggle to like follow it past that.
Yeah. So Barry does talk about that, and Barry's been doing this work for 50 years. So I do think that he's kind of working at a much higher level. However, Um, if you remember in class, we talked about the whole concept of connect the dots. So if you're working with someone and they say that, oh, I feel that in my hip, or I have a sensation in my ear or something as you're working, you want to take your hand, if you can, and place it on that area, or have them put their hand on that area. And what you're looking for is there an amplification of the pulling that you might be feeling, or the strain, or does the unwind shift? Like, does something happen when we bring that other part of the body into play? Because then we know that there's a connection. Um, so that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is, let's suppose that you're working with someone who has scars, maybe someone with a C-section, let's say, and you're down at the feet. You can say to them, um, hold your scar and see, is that scar coming into play? Does something start to pull or release when they start doing that? You know, you do the unwind, you come back, okay, hold it again. Maybe you're going to go up to the head, hold the occiput. Okay, hold the scar now. So you can start to really play with these areas of the dots, so to speak, to connect and see, where is that strain maybe coming from? Where's that tightness coming from?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
somebody's coming in with TMJ pain, you're down at the sacrum, and you might say, okay, can you hold the jaw as I'm down here? So, you know, there's no wrong answer in this. You're always going to be just exploring and discovering things on your own as well. But that is the whole concept of connect the dots. So when you hear Barry say it was pulling from here, here, the other place, down into this area, that's what he's piecing together.
Okay.
Does
Yeah,
that help?
that makes sense. Mhm.
Good.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
Um, Also, with my sister, I've been working on her with her migraines, and I work on her every week. And she's doing really good. She hasn't had a migraine in 5 months. It
Nice.
used to be almost every 3 weeks. So that's been really great. So her brain cycle is like 2:30 or something, and but she still has like really dramatic reactions to CFT. Like her whole body will kind of tremble or like shake for a few seconds, or something will like twitch really hard or something. But her system seems to be like fully open in her brain. Is that something that will just keep continuing as she has CFT and it's not really changing anything? Or
It might. I mean, that may just be how she unwinds or releases, and you may see that shift over time. But you know, she's an adult. She's got a lot in there. So we're never really, I don't think, ever completely clear. So she's
Mhm.
probably just has more layers coming up, and that's what her releases are looking like. So
Okay,
that's great. Yeah, I keep going with her. But that's
thank you.
awesome to hear. That's a really big life improvement for her.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been going really good.
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I have a
Do we have
few
questions?
questions.
Go ahead.
Sure. Hey.
So my brother-in-law recently had a brain tumor removed.
Okay.
And I was wondering, can you refresh me like what the like timeline is and things like that? Like he's going to be going ahead with chemo and radiation, and I was just wondering about support and like what kind of time frame, is it safe to work, or yeah, if you could speak to that.
I'm sorry to hear that. So he had a malignant tumor removed. Um, well, I mean, I would be certainly getting some kind of medical clearance just to make sure that his team, I'm sure he has a whole team helping him with that, is okay with him getting this type of body work. They may not know what craniosacral fascial therapy is, CFT, but you may just say CST, craniosacral work, and you know, and see how they feel about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of what I assumed, but I just wanted to hear feedback from you as well if you had had any experience
When
with.
is his surgery?
His surgery was about a month ago.
Okay.
So the incision is healed, and then he's like on the brink of starting chemo. Because
Yeah.
they have him like lifting, like he's doing like a total of like 8 pounds. And he talked about how he'll feel like the pressure in his head. And I'm like, well, if they're okay with him like experimenting with that, like, yeah, I was just I was curious. I told him to ask his medical people. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
100% I'd be getting medical clearance for that.
yeah. And then my other question was, I'm working with a 14-year-old boy he had a concussion. I understood when he was like 5 or 6, and now recently he again had one about 4 months ago. And I've been working with him now maybe 6 weeks, about every other week or so, 30 to 60-minute sessions. And he's slowly improving, but it's still like if he does any exertion, anything, he goes straight to headaches. And very like still very sensitive to any kind of physical exertion or anything like that. And so I'm wondering, is there just anything more to be aware of, or like
So it's a second concussion. And how long have you been working on him, did you say, on this
six
round?
weeks, about 6 weeks?
How many sessions?
Oh, I'd say 4 to 5.
4 to 5 sessions. And where's his brain cycle?
It varies. Like when he initially came, it was shut down. I wasn't taking it every time. I would feel like to check if there was movement. Like today, there was movement and expansion happening. Um, but he doesn't stay open. Like he
Okay.
doesn't shut the whole way down, but like he definitely tightens back up.
Yeah. So like Holly said, it's that 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So maybe you get him open and he comes back and he's a little bit lower, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yes.
So sometimes with the concussions, particularly when it's a second concussion, because after one concussion, you are more apt to get one, and then they don't, it's harder to heal from that. So that could be a little bit of where he is. And also a 14-year-old, you want to be it's very, what's screen time like? Is he on his phone? Is he
No, they're very proactive with
very good? Okay,
monitoring like light intake,
really important.
sunglasses, trying to not bump his head,
Yeah,
things
okay,
like
so
that.
that's good. That's good because I've had that problem with teenagers. Um, So I would just keep going. I would be trying to really check in, hone in on that cycle and see where he is, and try to figure out why he's slipping back if he is.
Okay.
Is he overexerting or is he doing something that's bringing him back? And have you gotten in his mouth? What was the concussion from?
He got shocked and then, oh gosh, the details are
That's okay.
blurry there.
Yeah.
But
That,
like when he first laid on my table, like his hips were like all crooked and he looked like his body was like all over the place.
yeah.
So since then, when he lays on the table now, like he's much more in alignment.
Great.
Last week, I worked in his mouth, and
Okay,
there was
that's what I
definitely
mean.
a lot of
Good.
strain
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Which
'cause
that he said that this past week he had zero headache as long as he didn't like overexert. And before he would have headaches even with like just
yeah.
resting.
Yeah, so I find with the concussions, it's really important to get in the mouth because whatever that accident was that caused that concussion, a lot of times, the teeth have gotten so clenched or the chin has come up and hit. So there can be a lot in the mouth, which you don't always think about. So I would keep, kind of exploring in there and look for those wins, like you said. I still have headaches, but I can do more, or the headaches were less intense, or it's just those little pieces of hope that are kind of moving you forward, and document them so that you can remind them where they've come from. But
Sure,
it
makes
sounds
sense.
like you're getting there. It's just gonna just maybe take, a few more sessions to get them
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel good. Like the mom feels very invested. Like she wants to like she keeps continuing to schedule and like wants to book through the summer. So I feel like she's bought in. But I guess I was just yeah wondering what to look for. Like the mouth thing feels helpful because I did find like his bottom like teeth and chin was really tight, which would fit with what you were saying. So I will keep chasing that.
And then, what I'll do with concussions too is I like to see them kind of closer together in the beginning. And then as the symptoms start falling away, we say, okay, let's see if we can go, we'll go a week or we'll go 2 weeks now and see how far out you can get, while they're still kind of feeling good and holding. And it may be the type of thing, and I have people who have had very severe concussions and they've gotten themselves to a good place, but they're still like compromised in life and they may always be. There may be some kind of permanent issue for them. And they come every month, every other month, just because it helps them. It just helps them in life.
Sure. So when you're saying closer together, like would you like do 2 or 3 days in a row, or what do you mean by
In
closer
the in
together?
the beginning, I might. I mean,
Okay.
if someone just if I could see them twice inside of a week, that would be great. And then maybe I'm going to go twice the next week and then maybe once a week. It kind of depends on what they want to do and also how they're feeling. So sometimes it can be a lot for them. There can be some detox, there can be some, that kind of a feeling as well. So, but ideally that's how I would try to space that out.
Okay.
And I also don't want people to feel like they have to, the plan is that I want them coming forever because I really don't. I really want people to feel better and move on. And then I'm here if you need me.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck with that. That's great.
Kim, can I just piggyback off that conversation? I'm curious about when you said and you asked about the screen time. Was that specifically in relation to the concussion or just in general and the fascial web?
Well, I think more so with the concussion piece, right?
Yeah.
But, and look, it's not good for anybody, but
No,
really
yeah,
have a compromised brain from
yeah.
an injury, I think you've got to try to lay off of that. And
You're really
especially,
more susceptible.
yeah, with
Yeah.
the kids, it's
I
tough.
yeah, I just had a 12 how old should be? Maybe 10 or 11-year-old girl. I've been doing reflex therapy with her for a year and a bit, and she had terrible posture when she started. That got really like she was amazing. And then I saw her after the school holidays and my first appointment, and I'm like, what's happened to you? Like, haven't done CFT, that will be the next session for her, but I'm like, you have just gone way back with your posture. And my first thought was, how much time in the holidays did you spend on a screen? And
Yeah,
yeah, I just was curious to ask about that in terms of generally. Um, yeah.
yeah.
Um, so I do also have another question around brain cycles, and um, I don't know what other people experience, but I have found that nobody stopped at 240. Like people were just soaring
Yeah,
high,
yeah, you can keep
high
going.
above that. Like, oh,
Absolutely.
oh. So that's normal, like to keep going. I have one boy that got to over 1,000.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah. And so is there
We
like
just,
Go ahead, Holly.
I was just gonna say, we just say we kind of stop, counting it past that because it's
Yeah,
just kind of
takes
eating into their treatment time. So yeah, yeah,
yes.
but you can sit there and count it if you want to 1,000. Yeah.
yeah, it's a long time. And I've been thinking, at least for those people that get up, even getting up to sort of 600 and 700, it is still a long time to, I'm like, oh, that's 5 minutes of treatment I could have given them. Uh, and so coming into doing that, like at the start of the session, but not at the end, maybe. The other thing that's happened for me that I've had to seek a bit more kind of clarity around from other people is I don't know, my osteopath calls it a still point where you're measuring the brain cycle, but then the body takes, like, it just stops partway through and then something else happens where it's actually kind of like they're they stay pulsing in that spot. All the movement of the brain cycle moves to be a bit sideways or different. Is that something that you guys have had much experience with, or do you
So
notice
there's
that
some
happen?
different, yeah, there's different language around it, but
Yeah,
if you remember back in class when we would be doing brain cycle and we would maybe have that like bounciness or like a pause and you're not sure, am I expanding or are they expanding or
yeah,
contracting? And then all of a
yeah,
sudden they keep going. So
yeah,
that that all gets counted into whatever phase we're in before there's a definitive switch to, the next phase. So that may be what they're referring to. Art, when we talk about still point in CFT, we're talking about that we are in an unwind or we're in a release, and the body just kind of stops and freezes in that moment. We say that they're softening or reorganizing into this new way, right? So we wanted to support them until they come out of that still point.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this interesting thing that's been happening. So I need to come up with another word for it because that's the words that she used, and
Yeah.
I would like to understand, like, use something different for it. But like, I had a guy come, and he was the first person who really, in this sort of moment of brain cycle measuring, had this very for 10 minutes, like it didn't expand or contract. It did other things. And then he came quite stressed one day after something had happened, and a whole hour actually spent doing that. And I just followed because that's just what he was doing. But I don't have any, like, I don't really have a good understanding or like language to talk about what actually is happening in that moment. So yeah, that's been a bit unexpected, I think, for me, but just following it also. And like for him, like I would be 40 centimeters off his head with my hands, but I could feel I can't go any closer unless I stop feeling and just
Uh-huh.
push past it. But he still feels like I'm holding his head, but I'm not. Yeah, it was a really interesting experience. I don't know if you have any light to shed on what's going on exactly in that time.
So, well, when you said you were holding his head for an hour,
Well, I mean, it sounds like he's super sensitive.
yeah.
I wasn't holding his head. Like, so I literally touched his head twice in the whole session. Like, so I was measuring his brain cycle, and then it stopped. And then you'd have things like just feeling that.
Bounciness or
No, so
pause.
it could, yeah, you can, there's a bit of this
Uh-huh.
sometimes, a
Yep.
bit of this, or even a bit of this, and then one can go out really far, and then the other one comes back in, and then one, like I was 1.5 meters away from his body at one point, where I'm like, okay, I can feel that I can't push, like I've got to stay here until it's ready to come back in, and it did, it came back in, and then at one point I came in, and then all the way onto his face, where I kind of had my hands a bit weird. I'm like, just tell me if this is too weird. Can't even do it on myself like this. And then this big twist, and then it released, and I came back off, and then did it again and again, and then came back off, and then it went to the other side. Like I'm just following it, just like you would do
You could have
on
been
someone's body.
you could have been in treatment, not necessarily feeling brain cycle. It sounds like to me, based on like
Correct, correct. That's right. I don't feel like that wasn't brain cycle. It
yeah,
was it stopped. Something else happened, and then at the end, I can't remember if we checked his brain cycle again or
yeah.
not, whether it happened, but it feels like treatment. Um, and but just feels like
So maybe you're just, you have the ability to work off the body a little bit. I don't particularly do that. My
hmm,
hands are connected on the body,
yeah,
but
yeah.
you may have that ability. I mean, I'm sure that that's
And so
available.
and so do we then just, like, in terms of what I'm saying to my client, like, this is just CFT, but for your brain, for your head, but I'm not even touching his head. Like I don't,
Is
yeah, I'd love,
I have a question, Leanne. Is he
yes.
aware of, is he, so he's very sensitive energetically to what you're doing to him?
Well, he feels like, even though I'm not touching him, he feels like my hands were on his head. Um, and it
Yeah.
feels amazing, and he's relaxed, and it feels good. I don't. Is he? Well, he's a kind of person who does a lot of meditation and stuff. So maybe there is a level there,
Yeah.
but it has
That's,
happened with
yeah, for
other
sure.
people, but not to maybe to his extent. He was just the first person and probably the most extreme um situation that I've had with that. But I've had other people where, like, it just the brain cycle stops, and it's like we're going into some kind of treatment, and there is some interesting movement around the head, but it's not actually on the head. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't
It
know
sounds
really
like you're dealing with it great.
Yeah, well, I'm
Well,
following.
is he asking you for an
Pardon?
yeah, but is he asking you for some sort of explanation about it?
No, he's having a great time. But I'm like, oh, this wasn't in the training. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Calling them on, this is good. How are you feeling? You okay? I'm checking in with him. I'm just sort of following it along, and I'm like, okay. Um, so yeah, I don't really feel like there's anything else I could do except follow it. Like I could just stop, but I don't feel like that would be doing honor to what his body's doing because all I am doing is listening and following, and so I kind of
Well, that's
have
the
just kept
CFT
doing that.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
we're listening and following.
yeah. And it was interesting because when after that event, I contacted, remember in our course, Kim, who was a craniosacral therapist.
Yeah,
You do
Elner. Uh-huh.
courses. Yeah. Well, I contacted her after that because I was like, I need to
Yep.
talk to someone about this. And she goes, oh, you wouldn't believe I've just had my own session with Barry Gillespie yesterday. Um, and so that was really amazing timing. And she just said that for every question that she had, he said, just listen and follow. Just listen and follow.
Exactly.
And so I'm like, oh, well, I listened and I followed. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But I would be curious to know if anybody else, if there was some language around it that I could even help to understand myself what it is that what I'm doing. I just feel like it's more straightforward when you're
Well, I
feeling
mean,
the,
we're
pardon?
we're teaching this as a physical.
We're losing you, Holly. I don't know if we're gonna get that back.
Oh, are you guys there?
Yeah. You tell Holly that we can't all right, we'll see if she comes back. Katrinka, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say with people I connect with pretty well, like with my mom, she has dementia, and I don't even really go into the CFT part. I'm just putting my hands on her head. And even with my daughter, my hands do float away. So that energy is there, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. And it connects that way. And again, like I'll have my eyes closed. I think that's what you're talking about, Leanne. I'll have my eyes closed and all of a sudden I'll open my eyes and I didn't realize my hands had moved away. Is that what you're kind of saying? Or
I do all my work with my eyes open, so I see it. But yes, when I'm counting people's brain cycles, my hands come way off. Oh, well, depending on their brain cycle, actually. Obviously, when it's very tight and small, they don't. But the bigger the brain cycle gets, the further away I come because I can feel where that sort of field is. I suppose I don't know how to
Yeah,
what to
that's
yeah.
describe.
interesting. Sometimes when I'm feeling cycle or if I have my hands and I'm feeling somebody's cycle in class, my hands will they're expanding where I almost feel like they're falling off the head and I kind of bring them back in and they keep
Okay.
going out and I bring them back in and they'll say, "Oh, why, when you do that thing," and it's because I literally feel like my hands are going to fall off the head. Do you know what
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean? So I
yeah.
keep bringing my hands back in, whereas you may just, you're going with it and you're letting
Following.
your hand fall off the head. So it's all good.
Yeah,
I mean, I think this sometimes it's just so hard to like articulate what to feel and how to feel, and everybody feels differently, but we're energetic beings. So it's all good.
mm,
You just
mm,
may be able to get some work accomplished off the body like you're doing.
mm.
Yeah.
Sometimes for me, if I'm feeling it and I'll feel like my hands wanting to come off, I'll just, instead of like, really expanding, I'll just kind of like let them come off a little bit and continue to feel that pressure without like having my hands go out. And then I'll just wait until it changes and then it kind of like sucks it back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'll play around with that. I or even just coming in close. I mean, yeah, interesting. All right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh, very good. Anybody else want to share anything or ask any questions? You can throw it in the chat if you don't want to talk.
I'm dealing with a newborn, so we'll
Right.
see how this goes. I have my baby, a little girl,
Oh,
and
congratulations.
she's 4 weeks old.
Um,
And she has a pretty like recessed chin, which has
Okay.
made nursing challenging. And she's got like still a lot of strain on her occiput and a tight jaw. So I'm just, curious for those of you who have worked with this kind of thing, because I'm just a mom doing this. And I have seen a lot of improvement. Like I don't have any more pain, no more bleeding nipples, like no
Good.
more cooking, all that kind of stuff. But she still does have like milk transfer issues and getting enough. And so we're doing like pumping in bottles too.
Okay.
And I think this is because that chin is so far back. And I'm just curious for any of you who have like worked on babies with this kind of thing, what has helped besides CFT? I mean, we are doing some chiro, or
How's
if like
that?
you
How
see
about
this being
lactation?
better.
Do you have
Sorry.
do you have a lactation consultant?
Yes.
So lactation. Has she been looked at for a potential tie?
Yeah, they said posterior tie, but also it can be challenging because her chin is back. So it's like, can we restore functionality to the jaw and then the tongue comes forward, or is releasing the tongue going to let the jaw come forward?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, she's
So it's
only
one of those
4 weeks,
things.
so I mean, if she's eating and she's 4 weeks, you have time um, with that. But I would say, like on the team, you want to have a good lactation consultant who's understanding, uh, CFT or the importance of the fascia, and a good dentist who's working with infants and airway, right? All of that. But I would keep working with her. So think about it. If the jaw is being pulled back, what is her neck? What is the whole collarbone, shoulders, everything feel like if that's being pulled back? And of course, in her mouth, you want to be working, seeing if you can start to free that up. And a lot of times newborns will be a little more recessed at birth and it will start to pull forward. So she's still young and you have time, but I would be, you have the benefit of being able to work on her a little bit every day.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of the people that was recommended during the CFT course was Michelle Emanuel, and she does
Yep.
the tummy time classes, or different. She has more than just the tummy time method, but she has some classes like baby reflexology and torticollis and different things on her website. You could look on there.
She's great. Are you able
Um,
to take that if you're not a professional?
what's that?
Are you able to take those classes if you're not a
So I forgot about that. I think she does have it where but there are YouTube videos as well,
yeah,
that
she's
are
great.
still circulating. But yeah, you have to be an OT, PT, or speech.
Yeah.
I forgot about that piece. Yeah. So, but maybe looking in your area for someone who has taken those classes, I guess. I don't know. That might be an option, but it aligns really nicely with CFT. So.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely. Yeah, good. Well, keep us posted, Courtney. I mean,
you.
that's that's so great.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a question as well, kind of about ties and airway and all that. I had my son at the class when he was 4 months old, and we had a tie released before 6 months. So I had been doing CFT with him in between that time. We saw a chiropractor, a dentist, another dentist, an OT, um, and the chiropractor was specialized in airway and all that. And so what I'm trying to accomplish is his mouth breathing is real bad. And I was just wondering if you could give me some direction on where else I could go with that, if you think that CFT could still benefit or change anything if I've been doing it with him since November.
So I'm sorry, what age was he released, Casey?
He was released at 6 months old, and he's 8 months now.
Okay. And you're still having is he getting his tongue up? Like when he's sleeping, do you
It's
see and you pull down, is the
it
tongue coming up?
No, because his mouth is just open when he sleeps, and it's down.
And the tongue is down.
Yeah.
What's nursing like?
It was fine. After the release, dribbling stopped, a small amount of discomfort stopped, eating improved, like solids a lot. He stopped drooling, had a lot of improvement in all the other areas, and a little improvement in his mouth closing during the day, but still not at night.
Yeah,
Or
okay. I mean, because after a baby gets released, their form of myofunctional therapy is the nursing. So it's good to hear that his nursing
okay.
is improved and
Mhm.
that's getting the tongue up there. Does he have a myomunchie?
He does, but he won't use it correctly for much longer than a few seconds at a time.
Yeah, and that's all we really expect at that age. They're going to kind of play with it, and then you're eventually like when you just get there, you can kind of pop it in and see if
Yeah.
that will come over time. He's still really young, but just starting to introduce him to that um, may be helpful. And then just always keep keep closing the mouth even during the day. You're always just kind of trying
Mhm.
to retrain them to get those lips sealed. Um,
Would you
and
say there's time still for me for before he turns a certain age where it really becomes serious to solve? Um, or or is that now?
but you've had the release and you're doing CFT on him.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I would continue with CFT and he's your son. So like I said, you have the advantage of being able to do a little bit every day, getting in his mouth, getting under the tongue. Are you working in the mouth okay with him?
Yeah, yeah. I don't do it every day,
No,
but
that's
yeah.
that's you don't have to do it every day, but um, just consistently. So I think at that age, it's tricky. So if you've done all the things and you're doing the CFT, you've done the release, he's got the Maya Munchie, you're continually trying to close the mouth, it may be just a matter of time.
Okay.
Um, if you say he's nursing well, I'm sure that the release went well,
Hmm.
but I would like to see his tongue, elevating.
Right.
Oh,
You, would you suggest that I keep seeking out other airway providers, or should I just give it some time to
Oh
correct
yeah,
itself?
I mean, I wouldn't want to see him have to get another like release or anything. I mean, if he's eating
Right.
okay, you could certainly get him evaluated, but how about like lactation or OT or any of those kind of professionals that may have some other types of advice on that?
Okay. What about a myofunctional therapist? Is that the correct direction?
He's too young. So
Okay.
myofunctional therapist is going to give him direction and exercises to do, now maybe when he's like 3 or 4, that's
Okay.
an age where you can start to introduce those exercises that he'll start doing, you know, tongue clicks and different things like that. But
Mhm.
at 6 months, like I said, the myofunctional therapy is the nursing. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah, that's kind of it's tricky. You've got that window between um the very young age and then when they are able to take direction with myofunctional therapy.
What is what do his releases look like at the lower extremity, like from his hips down?
His hips are are what I'm able to release the best, and the easiest. So we do a lot of that, and he used to do the C shape when he was just laid down, and he's nice and straight, and does all of his midline, bringing his hands together and stuff. But he does, I remember talking in class about in THFR where he has that little blue nerve across his nose, and he had stork bites and a tongue tie, and so I don't know if that plays into anything, but his hips seem pretty loose to me.
Katrinka, are you an OT?
I'm an OT. Yeah, I was trying to figure out if something's going on like at the foot, like kind of the lower, like the foot area, or you know how you guys taught us in class how the tongue is like goes all the way down to the toes?
Well, yeah, I mean, all the fascia is connected, so there could be something. Um, so that's why I encourage you to keep with the CFT. Um, but I was just asking you, Katrinka, as an
Yeah.
OT, are there things that you would do for a baby at 6 months, such as any type of exercises or anything that would help mom help him with the open mouth posture?
Oh, sorry, we're going over a speed bump. Um, right now I am actually just starting to work with babies, so I don't feel like I'm like the best to give that
Yeah.
uh, as from an OT standpoint. But I'm sure there are. I just,
Yeah. So Casey, that could be, another person to look at to bring onto the team if you feel like you're
Yeah.
doing something else. Yeah.
And we actually took him to an OT before we had the release, and he had, still does, has an umbilical hernia.
Okay.
And she suggested that we didn't get the release because of the fascia that could like something about like holding it all together, and if we released it, it might like let it all go, and he would struggle with his development. Um, but she wasn't trained in um oral motor skills, I believe.
Yeah.
So we ended up going to see a dentist. That dentist said he didn't need a release. We went to another dentist. She said he had a posterior tie, and she did the release. So it
Okay.
kind of took us a while, but we eventually got it done.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I
So
think from the lactation standpoint, oftentimes babies really do need like oral motor therapy. So
Yeah.
we're teaching them how to use that new range of motion. So maybe a lactation person or somebody who's trained in oral motor therapy might be able to help with that.
Yeah, I'm thinking that could be, like I said, OT, but if there's lactation as well, that can help with that. I think that could be, like I said, another person to bring in on the team.
okay.
Can I say something real quick? This is Ashley. I'm a pediatric OT also,
Okay.
and I work with a lot of babies. And one thing that I could suggest, which was just mentioned, was doing some oral motor exercises. And honestly, these could even be some simple things like learning to drink from like a straw and open cup, which are functional activities that you can start working on as early as 6 months. Um, but even just kind of working on some really simple imitation, trying to get that tongue moving around a little bit, maybe sticking the tongue out, making different sounds with the tongue and the lips, all of those types of things that you do with like facial imitation and imitation with the mouth will also be helpful from an oral motor perspective, to just kind of, like everybody's been saying, kind of retrain the mouth and the tongue, and kind of bring awareness to it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we have been working on that. He can click his tongue, and he drinks from a straw in a cup. So that sounds, everybody's been really helpful. I'll just keep working on that. And then we do have somebody that does oral motor therapy in town, so I could try that next.
Yeah. Yeah. As he gets older, it'll get easier to do those kinds of bring in those kinds of therapies, things, exercises too.
Mhm.
Great. All right. Anybody else?
Hey, this is
Okay.
Bailey talking.
Haley.
Hey, I'm sorry if was asked earlier. I was fighting off my twins, which I don't know, that's kind of a CFT success story, both of them in their own right. Um, I was at the training and I was pregnant at the training. Did not know I was having twins at the training. So it came in very handy that I ended up seeing you guys again for the infant training because one of my little twins, so they were both in the NICU for a little bit, and one of them, poor thing, I would like push on my hip and stuff and be like, oh my gosh, my hip is killing me. Like it feels like there's just bones grinding against my left hip when I was pregnant. Well, it turns out it was baby A's head.
Oh, wow.
That poor baby came out with like her head was just kind of shaved right here. And I mean, she literally looked like she had microcephaly or something. But I worked on her head while she was like in the incubator, just barely touching her because they're like, don't touch them. It startles them. They're not ready to be touched. Like just a firm hand only. And I'm like, okay. And so I worked on her for like minutes at a time each day. And by the time we went home on day 4, she had a perfectly round head. It was crazy. And then,
like, what did you do? This is amazing.
of course, they didn't even notice her head. So they didn't even notice that there was anything wrong with her head. But I was like, holy cow, this baby has a crooked head. But then the other twin, she was like not gaining weight. She had to have surgery. It was a whole thing, but she was not gaining weight when she came home. And she had a little bit of a posterior tongue tie and was not transferring milk well. And of course, I had like baby twins and was not thinking about doing CFT. And I was like, okay, well, let's give it the weekend. And I like did a little bit of CFT in her mouth. And when we went back to the pediatrician to do a weigh in, the pediatrician was like, I was like, you want to see if you think your tongue looks better now? And she's like, I don't even have to look at her. I can tell from across the room, like her jaw is so much more forward. Like everything is so much better. She had gained weight. So it was really cool. And that kind of started kind of after I was postpartum and everything. Now I work on babies like nonstop. But yeah, it was really cool that they had so much success with CFT.
Yeah.
Now they're 15 months old and never stop moving. So I know.
How old are they?
15 months old.
Wow, I can't believe it's been 15 months since we saw you.
Yeah, it's
God,
crazy.
time flies.
Hmm. But I had one question. My question though is more for adults. I don't know. I have adults who are just really sticking with the process. Like they just love the healing process. They're like all about it and everything. But I like feel bad for them because I have a handful of adults where they just seem to be way more sensitive to things. And they just like almost after every session, they have like a reaction for a couple days of like headaches or like their neck hurts wherever we worked, or I don't know, it might even go top down. Like one time their neck really was in a lot of pain the 2 days afterwards, and the next time they were like, well, now everything's kind of shifted down to like my sacral area and or like my low back and stuff. And I work in a chiropractor's office, and she's noticed when I've done CFT on her, because she can tell like when her atlas is out of alignment. She's noticed when her atlas is already out and then we do CFT, like things are worse. And have you guys noticed, I don't know, like how to deal with people who are more sensitive to like the unwinding effects? I mean, I always tell them like take it easy, take an Epsom salt bath, like drink tons of water, take an element packet or something. Like I tell them and they do all that stuff, but it seems like there's a few more. And like the chiropractor I work with, she's an upper cervical chiropractor, and I feel like they have more upper cervical stuff going on usually when they are more sensitive.
So what if you
But
worked on them down from down below a little bit more? If you tried on those type of people who are more sensitive to their atlas going out or their neck hurting or something, or the headache, that if you started at the feet or the sacrum and so see what you can accomplish down
okay.
the feet, you could try that. And I just always really remind everybody to just make sure you're following
Hmm.
gently, because if there is any movement that is forced or is, too much for somebody who's so sensitive to those areas, they may be armoring up, and then, that may show up as my neck is sore the next
Hmm.
day, something like that.
A lot of times it's not even that they're like moving a whole lot. They're
Yeah,
small movements.
I'll move.
And it's not like, a lot of, it's not any pressure or anything. It's just following and everything. And I'll be like, what did we even do? Like, there was nothing really significant, in my mind. I'm like, look at my notes. And I'm like, I didn't, there wasn't anything that we like really was crazy. And then they have like,
Talks. And that's always just a good thing to get out. So I think what you're reminding them to do, take it easy, water, detox baths are a good idea.
it
Um,
does seem like it's usually my older people too, like the 50s, for like in the 50s range, 60s range, where maybe it is just like, you know, they have a lot more going on.
well, like you said, if they're coming to an upper cervical chiropractor, they already probably have those issues. Danielle chimed in here. If my atlas is out, CFT makes symptoms worse. Oh, where did that go? Hang
Oh yeah,
on.
if I lie with it out a towel
It's
or something
important
under my neck.
without a towel or support under my neck or without something under my knees, I will get massive headaches from the atlas. So that's a good idea too. It's just with the position. Some people aren't comfortable lying flat if their atlas is out as well. Too bad
Hmm.
Holly's not on, because I know she works um, with a chiropractor who does atlas work.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, hi, you're there.
I'm here the whole time. I'm trying not to, I'm not going to,
Sound
I
like
don't know. I'm going to turn my
sound like
camera off.
you're like underwater. So you could also use the chat box if you want to add something, Holly. But did that help a little bit, Bailey?
Yeah, that does help. And I'll try and like
Okay.
focus more on their lower bodies too, and like sacrum, and just maybe not do as much with their head since they seem more sensitive that. I mean,
Yeah.
and all of them, I've encouraged them, the ones that didn't see a chiropractor at all, where it was like, I think you need to get adjusted. And so we stopped CFT until she gets adjusted.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Holly. Okay, yes, to all that you said about Atlas. Okay, so Holly agrees with us. I wish I could say more. All right, okay. Well, you know what? If you keep having issues with that, Bailey, why don't you reach out to us via email? Maybe Holly will have a convo with you back and forth on that.
Okay, sounds good.
Atlas more.
Too
Much too.
much.
Okay, she says yes. Okay, there you go. All right. Anybody else? Oh gosh, it's already after 9 o'clock here. Time flies when you're chatting about CFT. I had a really just to kind of, I don't know, to share something with you guys. There's a new dental group. Well, I don't think they're new, but they were new to me. No, they are kind of new in my area, um, that are working with pediatric dentists. They're doing the infant frenectomy. So we connected and they invited me in to meet them, which was fantastic, and observe a consultation. So I spent about probably 2 hours, 2.5 hours in their office today. And it was just so great to like be teaching these dentists a little, not teaching them CFT, but explaining what CFT is and how we work so well with the dentist and how we want to see all that play out, actually having a baby before they do a release and why that's important. And then the after, and they seemed so open and interested. And, we were just collaborating and sharing on all of the different myofunctional therapists in our area and OTs in our area. And I finally felt like my area where I am, Philadelphia, it just has been very slow to catch up to that kind, because there's so much like medical around here. Um, so I would just encourage you like to go out and talk to people, and whether they are OTs or lactation or dentists, even if they're not going to be doing the CFT, that just explaining to them what it is and explaining what you do so that you can kind of start to work, in a team approach for a lot of these people who do need more than just the one thing. But I felt really encouraged leaving that meeting today, and I think they were also learned a lot. So sometimes you feel like, here I am, the licensed massage therapist teaching dentists about like tongue ties in a sense. And it's, you have to really just trust yourself that we do have a really important piece of the puzzle, and sharing it with some of these other professionals is what's going to help build and educate your area. So. All right, my friends, I think it's time to say night night to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back on, in another 8 weeks or so. Where are we heading? We're heading to Florida at the end of the month, so we're looking forward to that. And then we'll be out in Indianapolis, Franklin, Austin, and we added a Philly class too, if anybody knows anybody in Philly. So, yeah, we're just trying to continue to spread the word, get it out there, and get some more practitioners out there so that people are hearing about it, and we want them to be able to find all of you because it's just such an amazing modality. All right, gang. So thank you. I'll say goodnight. I'll say goodnight for Holly, and we'll see you all soon.